My parents chose my cheating ex over me and kept asking me to take him back. Daniel and I were married for 4 years before I found out. Not through a confession or a conversation, but through a series of small inconsistencies that accumulated quietly over 3 months until I couldn't explain them away anymore. Late nights that didn't add up. A name that appeared too frequently in passing. A version of him I didn't recognize that kept surfacing in unguarded moments. When I finally confronted him, he didn't deny it. He sat across from me at our kitchen table and told me the truth like he was relieved to finally put it down. I filed for divorce 6 weeks later. My parents had loved Daniel from the beginning. My father called him the son he never had, which landed differently after everything. My mother had always lit up around him in a way she'd never quite managed with me. Warm and easy and genuinely delighted. I had always told myself it didn't mean anything, that parents loving a son-in-law was normal and healthy and nothing to read into. I understood after the divorce that I had been reading into it correctly the entire time. They were sympathetic initially. My mother held me while I cried the first week. My father said what Daniel did was wrong and that I deserved better. It felt like solid ground, and I was grateful for it because I had very little solid ground left. Then the invitations started. The first time was Thanksgiving, 3 months after the divorce was finalized. My mother called to confirm I was coming and mentioned casually that she'd also invited Daniel because she felt terrible about him spending the holiday alone. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that. She said she understood, but that it seemed unkind to exclude him entirely from the family when he'd been part of it for so long. I skipped Thanksgiving that year and spent it with a friend instead. Christmas was the same conversation with slightly different wording. Easter the following year. Again. I stopped attending family gatherings in any season that included him, which turned out to be all of them. My parents interpreted my absence as stubbornness. I interpreted their invitations as a choice they were making and trying to dress up as neutrality. Neutrality is not inviting the man who cheated on your daughter to every family holiday while she sits at home alone. A year and a half after the divorce, my cousin got engaged and the family celebrated at my parents' house on a Saturday afternoon. My mother called and told me Daniel would not be there. She promised. I believed her and I went. He arrived an hour after I did. I watched my father greet him at the door with a handshake that turned into a hug. My mother took his jacket and offered him a drink and laughed at something he said before he'd even fully stepped inside. I stood in the kitchen holding a glass of wine and understood with complete clarity that this had not been an accident. They had told me he wouldn't be there because they knew I wouldn't come otherwise. I set my glass down and found my mother in the hallway. Before I could say anything, she took my hand and said she was glad we were all together and that she hoped I could see how much Daniel still cared about this family. Then she said the thing she had apparently been building toward for 18 months. She said she thought if I could find a way to forgive him, we might be able to work things out, that nobody was perfect, that marriages required grace, that Daniel had made a mistake, but that he was a good man and she believed he still loved me. I stood very still for a moment. Then I told her I needed her to listen carefully because I was only going to say it once. I told her that Daniel had not made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying the wrong thing in an argument. What he did was a decision he made repeatedly over 7 months while I trusted him completely. I told her I had spent the last year and a half watching her extend more grace to the man who broke my marriage than she had ever extended to me inside it. I told her I had noticed every invitation, every holiday, every carefully worded phone call designed to make me feel like the unreasonable one for not wanting to sit across a dinner table from someone who had dismantled my life. I told her I was done attending gatherings where I had to negotiate my own comfort in rooms my parents owned.